Hello, Internet, and welcome to the ninth episode of Deep Fried Neurons podcast. It's a podcast about stories that I, your host, find extremely interesting. And I'm gonna be honest, I brought you another urban legend, and this time my favorite, because the last one did so well. I mean, relatively well. It's my best performing video yet on YouTube. Anywho, I hope you enjoy this one. I'm not giving you the title of the urban legend because, well, it's a spoiler. So, can we cue the fucking. This story started when Neha got her appointment letter. She's finally been placed through campus placements. And as soon as college is over, the process to enter the job would begin. The only problem was this job was in Pune, and it was one of those companies who was picking people up from Nagpur to go to Pune. Pretty rare to happen, I know, but it was happening, and it was happening to Neha. Now, in ideal situations, campus placements make student happy, especially when they have a very good package. But in this case, Neha just got nervous. She didn't tell her parents immediately after she got the appointment letter. She called her girlfriend, Akriti. After listening to the news, Akriti dropped whatever she was doing and went to Neha's place. And they just stared at the appointment letter. Finally, Akriti broke the silence and said, "You have to go. I mean, there is no way you can miss this opportunity." Neha just replies with, "Well, what about us? What do you want to happen to this?" And Akriti says, "Well, we both said career first. And we'll work something out. We'll try long distance if we have to, but I can't stop you from going to Pune for this job, especially with the package they're offering you." That assurance just made Neha feel bad. Now Neha was just thinking out loud that she shouldn't have applied, maybe. Akriti said, "We have the rest of our lives ahead of us. And who's to say I won't come to Pune following you?" And both of them kissed, and they said, "Maybe we should break this news to your parents." So they go downstairs, and she tells her parents. The parents become extremely ecstatic, and they start preparing for Neha to go to Pune. Finally, the day arrives. Neha has to move to Pune. She gets an apartment not far from her office. People at her office are nice, but Neha's the introverted kind. It takes a while to get used to things, especially when you've lived all your lives in the same town. On the top of that, she was gay in a country that's not overtly accepting of gay people. If you live in India, you must be aware of the fact that India is not exactly comforting for homosexual people. And that's why it takes a while for some of them, maybe most of them, to open up to other people. And it doesn't help when you're already shy. Anyway, so she doesn't really have a lot of friends in the city, but she has Akriti. I mean, Akriti and her keep texting day and night. She goes straight from office to home to office. Not much changes. For about 2 months, it's a long distance relationship that is working fine with the help of technology. Eventually, one day, Akriti breaks down. And Akriti says, "You know what? I can't do this anymore. I genuinely can't. We have to stop talking. Maybe you should think of moving on, find some other people." And Neha's, of course, against this. She doesn't want to break up. She can't live without Akriti. Akriti's been her sole social life for the last 2 months, and her love life for her for the entire time that she was romantically involved with anybody. But it has to happen. It has to happen and has to happen. And it does. And it breaks Neha into pieces. For the next 6 months, she's just a lonely office employee in Pune. She becomes that one office employee who's always sad smoking alone, doesn't go to office parties, uh, puts in overtime, becomes the weird neighbor in her neighborhood. In general, it's not a good scene. Her parents start to notice that her hair is getting thinner, her cheeks are starting to go in, and her hair has become more frizzy and less voluminous. It's clear she's not taking care of her health. She's barely interested in talking to them. So one fine day, her mother decides that it's best for Neha to have a dog. Now, the background to that is that Neha's younger cousin got a dog and forgot to care about it ever. But regardless, the intention was nice. It wasn't like it was convenient for everybody to have to send this dog to Neha. Neha needed this dog. So one day her mother herself comes home, delivers this dog to Neha, and says, maybe this will keep you company. I know it's not human contact. Now, the hope is that this will anchor Neha's life into the house, and then she wouldn't have to, you know, not take care of herself. Maybe this will incentivize an improvement in lifestyle. And it works. Neha actually cares about her dog. Now, I've never given this dog a name. I mean, why don't you do it? Actually, you know what? Vishal, give this dog a name. Okay. So, Fluff, as Vishal says, who has an incredibly poor taste in naming dogs, is a cute dog. He's about a year old. He's not a puppy. Doesn't need as much rearing. Taking care of Fluff takes up a lot of time and brings a lot of life to Neha. For an empathetic person, that's a good thing, having a pet around. It actually also improves her social life to a certain extent. People interact with Fluff and interact with Neha because they want to interact with Fluff. Her office life starts to improve when she starts talking about her dog, but that's almost all she talks about. And her routine sets in. She drops Fluff into the daycare, goes to work, picks him up, goes home, puts on workout clothes, takes a walk around the block, comes back home, eats, and then finally falls asleep watching Netflix. Now, Fluff would sleep under her bed. Neha, who was always a restless sleeper, would toss and turn, and then her hand would dangle from the bed. So, when this hand would dangle, early in the morning, Fluff would not get up on the bed and start licking her face. He would start by licking her hand. And then, when she responded to licking her hand by petting his head, he would then climb on the bed to play with her. And that's how every day would start. And this routine set in. Eventually, Neha stopped missing Akriti as much, had a rather healthy outlook on life. In general, Fluff's presence in Neha's life worked the way her mother thought it would. Neha really cares about Fluff. Both of them spend a lot of time together, and quality time at that. One fine cold winter night, Neha decides to turn in early. She goes to sleep, turns off the lights. Fluff goes under the bed. So, since it's cold, the floor is cold, Fluff is now sleeping on the doormat. Then comes along a December night. Because it's so cold and Neha's so tired from the cold, she decides to sleep in early. She goes to bed. Fluff now sleeps on the doormat right next to Neha's bed because it's cold. The floor gets cold, so he prefers sleeping on the doormat. And the moment she goes to sleep, she hears a sound. This sound was of the water dripping from the faucet of the kitchen sink. Now it's cold outside and getting out of the blanket is really taxing. So Neha, already a restless sleeper, tosses and turns, and finally manages to reach in a position that's comfortable and lets her forget that the tap is running. A few moments later, she realizes that she can't do this. She can't sleep with the tap running. So she goes to the kitchen and she closes the tap. And while on her way back, she enters the room and the bed is gone, Fluff is gone, the windows are gone. There is just one man in a lawyer's robes and the Takeshi 69 face tattoos, saying that the court has determined that somebody must inspect if you taste like jello. Not knowing what the fuck is going on, Neha, of course, tries to make a fun run for it, turns around, and trips. The moment she falls, she wakes up on the bed. It's just a nightmare, and the faucet is still leaking. And then she notices that Fluff is already licking her hand on the down low. She turns around, says, "Fluff, it's too early in the morning to wake up. Can we please go to sleep?" She falls asleep. The next morning, Fluff doesn't wake her up. She wakes up by herself. She calls out to Fluff, but Fluff wouldn't answer. The kitchen faucet is still leaking, and where she's usually supposed to find Fluff, she finds a note. She picks up the note and she walks around. Eventually, she decides to read it. Then she hurries to find Fluff. A minute later, she does find Fluff in the bathroom, where somebody has put Fluff through a curtain rod, and the sound that we thought was from the leaking faucet is actually dripping of the blood into the bathtub, like Fluff's blood on the bathtub. And the note said, "Not only dogs lick." Okay, everyone, that's it for this week, and I hope you enjoyed that story. It's very close to my heart. It's actually something I tried to make a movie out of. um, and you know what? If this channel grows enough someday, and I have the kind of money that needs to make a short film on the said story, I will genuinely put it into action immediately. Or if I find a producer before that. um Speaking of which, we have a Patreon. Please feel free to support it if you have the kind of money and you think the content is worth it. Um, Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter for dank memes. Subscribe us on YouTube. Follow me on SoundCloud. If you're listening to this on Spotify or whatever, keep listening. Please, this podcast needs to grow. And that's it. Thank you for tuning in.